I just wanted to start by saying thanks very much, because I appreciate, like, it's a Friday afternoon, 3 o'clock, midterms for people who are on school, and this week has been really tough. Like, there's been a lot of strike action, and I know that it takes a lot of energy and effort to kind of come to these types of events. And many of you will have given generously in other fundraising activities. But I'm really, really grateful that you would choose to come to this fundraising activity, which we think is really important for us. And I wanted just to give a few words of introduction. There are going to be some people who might be coming, I know, later from the Global Academy, who might be a little bit late on arrival. So apologies for any disruption. The reason that we're here is to fundraise for the Turkey and Syria Earthquake Relief Fund. I'm going to show in a second just the campaign that we are trying to fundraise for. But before I do that, I wanted really to thank everybody who was part of the process in putting the event together, because it takes a lot of people. My colleague Anne Zuns, who's here in the room, who is one of our collaborators, Shahar Abdulatif, and Mohammed Amira are online. Shahar is from Syrian Academic Expertise, which is an NGO that's based in Turkey and in Northwest Syria. And Mohammed is representing Duzan Arts and Culture, who are also based in Gaziantep. And both of them will have an opportunity in this event to have some discussion about their reflections on what's been happening and to give a little insight into what's happening on the ground. I did want to just quickly thank Anne, and in particular Martin, who is based in Chile and who's part of our One Health Field Network, because he's been working in the field, but also trying to organize this event from afar, and we're very, very grateful. And in addition to that, there are lots of people from the Global Academy and the Edinburgh Earth Initiative, so Rebecca, Alexander, who are here in the room, Cynthia and Divya, who really kind of stepped up to help me when I was sort of begging for help to kind of try and garner support and get people to this event, and most importantly, to donate money into this event. That's the purpose of this. So I just wanted to set the scene a little bit and tell you that my name is Lisa Bowden. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a professor of population medicine and veterinary public health policy. I'm based at the Global Academy of Agriculture and Food Systems, which is part of the University of Edinburgh. And I joined the university in 2018. The reason that this is important to us is that when I joined the university and the Global Academy, I was really fortunate that that summer at Ankara Syria program, which is the Council of At-Risk Academics, was hosting a workshop, and they sent out invitations for colleagues here in Edinburgh to come and join and to support that program. And it probably was one of the most influential meetings that I've attended. And after that meeting, we came back and had a discussion about how we might mobilize our academic resources in order to be able to support food security issues in the region. And from that, really, I met Shahar Abdulatif, who's going to be on the line. And we forged a friendship first and a collaboration that's really based on, I think, a very big shared vision about how we address food security in fragile and conflict-affected states, and in particular, how we address it in the MENAT region, and in particular in Syria. So I'm going to cut out of this for a moment, because the real purpose of this meeting isn't really about the One Health Field Network, although I'm going to tell you a little bit about it. The real purpose of this meeting is to fundraise for this campaign that is being led by Shahar and supported by our community. Though you are not alone, Shahar will tell you a little bit about this in his opportunity to speak, but I wanted to make sure that people could see the opportunity to donate to the campaign. And you might ask, why would we choose this particular thing to focus on? Well, Shahar is and his team are one of the few groups who are actually delivering aid in Northwest Syria at the moment, an area which I think has been largely neglected, I think, from some of the immediate humanitarian relief efforts, although things are changing. So Let me just start by saying I'm not going to spend too much time on me, but I want to just say a couple of things. And the reason why this picture is up is because our network is about people, and our network is about partnerships. And at the heart of that network, what we start with is empathy and equity in everything that we do. We are a team of more than 40-odd researchers. Not all of us work together on all the things at all at the same time. Some of our network is here in the room now, and many of us are online. We bring together development practitioners, artists, academics who live and work in the UK, Turkey, Syria, and neighboring countries. Our fundamental aim in the network is really to think about, we conceive it around One Health. So this idea that the health of people, animals, and the environment are all interconnected within the context in which we live. And we frame that discourse really around our mutual vision about how we look to ensure food security. And in particular, how we move away as a primary aim from immediate humanitarian responses into long-term planning, preparedness, and decision-making. But underpinning all of that, and this is why I'm staying on this picture, is recognizing that Syrian intellectual and cultural capital, and I don't really like calling it capital, maybe we should call it resources, have really largely been ignored by humanitarian responses to Syrian displacement, and then more latterly the economic impacts of the pandemic have exacerbated that, and now the earthquake in Turkey and Syria threatens to kind of fragment that even further. So the risk to One Health, which we, as I mentioned, conceive of as broader than just the biophysical, we think about mental health and well-being, which occur at this interface between humanitarian, security, and sustainability agendas are really considerable in the region. And it's probably important for me just to set the scene and say that we've been working here in the last with Shaher and Mohammed and Jazan. Broadly speaking, for the last 4 years, we have a long-standing partnership. The country has faced protracted conflict for the last 12 years. There's a record number, I think it's close, both Shaher and Mohammed will confirm, I think it's close to 12.5 million Syrians inside Syria are food insecure. That's nearly 60% of the population. Over the last year, there was a threatening to be another 4.5 million people who were made food insecure, and I think from the statistics that are present from the UN, I think that 2.5 million of those people are severely food insecure. Shaher will say a little bit more about the situation update from the earthquake, but of course that has resulted in a huge amount of loss, substantial loss of infrastructure, buildings, and disruption to food supply chains. And so one of the things that we need to think about as we're going forward as a team, and I'll say this now, but I'll also kind of repeat it later, is that as we are part of something we call the Global Academy of Agriculture and Food Systems, we need to think about how we act as a global academy, as we act as a global citizenship in terms of supporting the partnerships that we say are sustainable, so that it's more than lip service, if you like. So we're here and funded on short-term projects. There's no core funding for this group. What unites us is a common vision and a common, I think, our common humanity. And so this purpose of this meeting is really to try and show our solidarity, to raise funds for Shahar's group, to spread the word that, in particular, around Syrians who are living in the region, who have had to move out with the region, but who are also living inside Syria now. So in this event, I should say, well, maybe I don't need to say too much about this, but this is the way that we address the research that we're doing, and you'll see a little bit more of it in the presentation we're giving, is that we try to think very carefully about the local context and how we anchor any interventions in the history and culture of agriculture so that we can think about the present and then the future. I'll say a little bit about the film afterwards, but what I'll do now is to make sure that there is sufficient time. We're very grateful that Shahar and find how to get back to Zoom. Oh, maybe I need to stop sharing. That's what I need to do. So we just want to acknowledge not only Shahar and Mohammed who gave their time at the last session in Easter Bush, but are giving their time now. They're very busy people. They have a lot to do. All of our team have survived the earthquake, but they are facing immense challenges, and yet despite those personal circumstances, they're still working, I think, courageously really to support their communities in practice. And we want to just hold space really for all the people within the university who have friends and families there, who may have suffered loss, and as a group and if you want to extend our condolences and our thoughts towards them. I'm going to hand over the microphone now to Shahar first and then Mohammed to give us some information about what's happening on the ground and perhaps to kind of crystallize our thinking about what we can do as an academic community to stand in solidarity with you and support you. So Shahar, over to you.
Yeah, so thank you, Lisa, very much. Can you hear me and see my screen?
Yes. Yeah, we can hear you. Thank you.
Okay, great. Yes, so here is the region that the earthquake struck last before 10 days. So just to highlight that this region where most Syrians, but also where most our team used to live, so South Turkey and northwest of Syria. As you know, so the devastated earthquake struck this region with two main earthquakes, actually one with 7.8 magnitude and a second one of about 7.6, mostly in nearby Gaziantep and Karaman Marash, south of Turkey, and affected to Northwest Syria in Azaz and in Idlib governorates. The issue and what makes it more challenging is that after shocks that continue to impact Turkey and Syria through the last week, this includes more than 38 earthquakes registered magnitudes of more than 4.5. So this is to understand why it is so difficult and still dangerous even for the people. Unfortunately, yesterday, also a new earthquake was registered with about 5 magnitude. This makes people not safe and aware, and unfortunately they have to leave their homes even yesterday. So after about 10 days of the main earthquake. In this region we are talking about 15 million people in both South Turkey and Syria, including 6.4 million of children. Very sad to say that in both countries now the numbers of deaths, more than 40,000 people lost their lives, and more than 100,000 injuries. Even to highlight that these numbers increased by hour, day by day, after the to say lost any hope to rescue people under the destroyed buildings and houses. In Northwest Syria, here is the main locations affected by the earthquake. Already this region suffering or suffered from the ongoing conflict for about 12 years. So even before the earthquake, we were talking about something very critical to the people that they are suffering from food insecurity and a lot of other issues related to education, to health, to a lot actually of things, and most important, the low financial PowerPoint. And that's why make the people so not ready to respond to such disaster. The death number in Northwest Syria also increased day by day. Yesterday was recorded about 5,000 deaths and more than 12,000 injuries. So here again, regarding the UN clusters, the numbers of the affected people and newly displaced people, we are talking about a region has about 5 million people. Half of them are refugees or internally displaced people, and about 80 to 90% of them, as I mentioned, suffering from the food insecurity. In this region, Northwest Syria, about 9,000 buildings are reported to be destroyed or damaged, and mostly in, maybe to mention Harem, Afrin, and other districts in Northwest Syria, and this make or leave about 12,000 families homeless. Because this situation, about 60,000 newly IDPs were registered that they have to leave from the region to another one. So that's why our response to this disaster was to even our staff inside Syria and in Gaziantep in Turkey affected by the earthquake, but fortunately they not injured also. Then we decided to support our people in both in Turkey and in Northwest Syria, but the most work is done until now in Northwest Syria to provide the essential things just to make the people survive during the last week and in this week, and we will continue also for next week or more. Our team, in collaboration with other local partners and volunteer teams, to distribute ready to eat food and food baskets, also distribute some cash for the affected families that they have either lost their homes or they have to move to another regions. The people stay more than 4 and 5 days just in the streets or in the fields without any protection. Also, we contributed, and we are contributing to establishment of a new called reception centers, where the families and the children can come together and then get a kind of support like tents or foods, drink water, and medicines, etc. Let me just explain more about the impact of the earthquake and why it is more complicated in Northwest Syria, as I mentioned already. So the region is suffering from the ongoing conflict for more than, for about 12 years. But also more than 1,500 aftershocks were recorded during the last 10 days. This makes people very serious, and they can't stay in their homes or in the buildings, even if not damaged. Also, the weather conditions were so bad, unfortunately. It was snow, the temperature below 0 degrees Celsius in the most affected areas. Also, the lack of fuel and heavy machines which is hindering the efforts to quickly reach the people. And here to highlight that the delay of the United Nations response, which is absolutely not acceptable, and that's why the people felt that they are left alone, especially during the first week after the earthquake. The United Nations just start to deliver supports during the last 3 days, even very small quantities, until now about 60 trucks, while in the same time, for example, from Northwest Syria and other local communities provide more than 100 trucks. That means the response of the local communities were faster and more effective to help the people. Maybe this is a big question opened, and now a lot of discussion about this. The people absolutely, and we are as NGOs, we are not satisfied with the response of the United Nations or the governmental response level. The most urgent needs still on the ground, like food, like shelter or safe spaces, medical supplies, health care, etc. All these items that actually people need just to survive. Also, for the education system, maybe this is as we are engaged in this sector, the education suspended during until now, and maybe for the next month. Also, a lot of schools were destroyed. Unfortunately, we lost tens of academics and students. Until now, about 50 students were recorded. And in the same time, also we to highlight and to thank all the students where they are the most volunteer teams and try to support their communities. Well, a lot of things to talk, but maybe I will stay here just to think about maybe the urgent needs during this month or the next 3 months, will be providing essential food, shelter, healthcare, and protection services. Also cash for the people, and carry out essential repairs or rehabilitation of the buildings that not being affected by the earthquake. Also support livelihoods in short term or employment, just to enable the people to continue working on the ground, and also protection services, mental health, and psychological support, etc. So protection services are became more important since now lots of children they are separated from their families, and nobody know if their families are alive or dead by the earthquake. So this is the most things current until now. And of course, we are looking for more support and collaborate with our colleagues in the world, in other countries. And maybe this is what I left to be discussed after that. So here, as I mentioned, this is the campaign we launched for immediate support. We were able to reach the people from the first day until now directly, as I mentioned, which is the most effective way to support the people until now. So I wouldn't talk a lot. Thank you, Lisa.
Shahar, thank you very much for sharing that, and it's really important to recognize what the campaign that you're doing. We will circulate that around. There's lots of key messages, I think, out of your talk, which highlight sort of the extent of the situation that you're in, and that I think probably people here in the room would have some reflections on about how they can support that beyond funding and perhaps into the longer term. I'm going to pause for the moment, though, and I'm just going to allow Mohammed to come in with his views. Mohammed is representing Duzan Arts and Culture, and they were a key partner on the film that we're going to show. Mohammed, I'm going to hand the mic to you now for your thoughts. And as I did in the last session, you know, the transition between these two talks is just to recognize that, of course, there's some technical aspects that are really critical at this point in the operational part of disaster recovery. But we also talked a little bit about how this natural disaster is a political disaster too, and that the implications and the consequences of a natural disaster in a context where there are disproportionate burdens on members of society can be very devastating. And so the social and cultural aspects of that are things that I think people in the room would really appreciate to hear from. So over to you, Mohammed.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Dr. Shahar, for explaining the situation. Like most of the situation. Thank you, Lisa, and Anne Martin for this event, and thank for the people for coming. Like if we're gonna go for the political side, I think it's so complicated to talk about it, and like we need a lot of time to discuss it and to discuss the complication that's going in Northwest Syria and in Syria in general. I'm not gonna go there because like it's gonna take us for a longer time. I'm gonna go more about how it's like the effects of people as trauma that they are living. They've been living 12 years of trauma, and now this is a new trauma that they are living that will affect them and will affect their sustainability and resilience to continue living. For us as a Duzan Art and Culture, we are a culture organization that was still working on archiving the cultural memory and artistic memory of Syria. where before the earthquake, we were like struggling in implementing our projects and funding wise. And now with the earthquake, there's a lot of sectors, not only the art and culture sector was affected, and it needs a lot of time to go back on the legs and stand. From our side, we start like working on scanning the artist and culture organization in Northwest Syria and also in the south of Turkey, that those people have small initiatives and small organizations, and they're trying to they try to work with the communities around them to provide to raise awareness about the importance of horticulture and using horticulture in different as a tools in different sectors of life. On the other side, like I think what's really important for everyone to understand is that even with all this supporting and all these donations and all these initiatives that's going on, that's been going since the first day of the earthquake till today, those are like small affecting, and we need to do more. It's not only a one organization work, it's everyone works. Like it's not only the UN agencies or United Nations could do this work alone. It's UN agencies like has responsibility on that. Local initiatives has responsibility on that, and people, even like people who are because there is no other solutions to get out of this and to solve this with the minimum damages. There's no like the damages is too hard to talk about, and it's too hard to measure till today. All like the numbers we can find and can search about, there are like there are numbers of just for this moment, and after this moment it will erase, and all the numbers are approximately, because especially in Northwest Syria, as Dr. Shahar mentioned, there was no heavy machines to rescue people, to take them out of the buildings, and this was one of the biggest problems that affected the Syrian people in Northwest Syria. On the other side, it was all of the like local initiatives and normal people bringing simple tools to try to rescue people from under destroyed buildings. And on the other side, like there was, as Dr. Shah mentioned, also like the local initiatives from other affected areas of Syria that was trying to rescue and help people. I think in this moment, as people who are living away from the situation, we should raise awareness about our people to stand and to keep talking about what's going on there, to keep sending, to keep supporting as much as we can, and to ask the people on the field, what do you want and what kind of help we can assist. As an example, one health stakeholders and partners is a small organization in South Turkey. They are like they didn't affected a lot of the situation of the disaster, of the earthquake disaster, and now they are like hosting families from other cities that are affected more, which is those people also need help, and we should like keep asking about them. And they are like a small initiative with a small resources and small capabilities. And I think for us also, like, to after 3 days of the earthquake, nothing get in Northwest Syria. This is like a huge disaster and a huge question mark we should ask ourselves about. That is this is allowed or not? I think like if we're gonna keep like talking about it, there's a lot of small details we can talk about it. We can talk about like there is around 2.5 million displaced people, Syrian people, internally displaced in Northwest Syria. They are now hosting other displaced people in the same towns. And like if this is gonna keep going like this, then this will never end. So from our positions, we can do small initiatives, and we can talk more about it. Like, I think the more we talk about it, the more like we can do actions and take out, like, came out with actions and the solutions. There's so many numbers, there's so many studies, there's like everything is still kind of chaotic. It's still working on organizing it and making it more accessible for everyone. But this is like need time and need to afford any assist and support we can do, and just keep asking what support and assist that we can do. Thank you, Lisa, and I will leave the mic for you.
Thank you, Mohammed. I'll just turn the video back on a second. I think both experiences that you shared and the points that you're making are very powerful ones. We're going to have an opportunity now for people in the audience just to ask you any questions about the current situation. There might be questions about what it is that we should be doing as an international community, apart from creating space to hear from local communities. So let me just open the floor for some questions, and then we will we'll showcase our documentary after that. Does anybody have any comments? It doesn't have to be a question, it can just be a sentiment if you want to share anything with Mohammed and Shahar. Yeah. And just say your names and they know.
Hi, it's Jeff here. Good to see you, and yeah, of course, very much with you all. You mentioned in your presentation that the needs of people arriving in camps were tense, and you mentioned NFI. What was NFI, please?
Sorry, Lisa, maybe the question again?
Yeah, so on one of your slides, you mentioned the needs of people arriving in camps for the first time, and this included tents and food and healthcare, but there was something on there, NFI, which I didn't recognize. It had the abbreviation NFI.
Non-fungible items. Non-fungible items.
Ah, okay. Thanks.
Any other questions? Yeah, thanks,
Thank you also for sharing, and we so appreciate the time that you're giving us today. Our thoughts are with you. I just wanted to take a figure that you just used there in the last talk about 2.5 million displaced people already hosting, giving home to others. And I missed the last figure that you said. I think it was Mohammed. So it was, you just said there was 2.5 million displaced people giving home to another huge number.
Yes, so this is in Northwest Syria. The total population about 5 million, so exactly 4.9 million. We say host communities, so the people that from the origin, and there is 2.5 million IDPs. They come from other regions from Syria to this region. This is before the earthquake. Now there is also movements within the same region. That I mentioned about 60 now. Today the updated numbers is about 70,000 people have to even to move within the region. So because the mostly from the regions that most affected, for example, let me give you just example. In the city Genderis in Afrin, it is about 80% of the buildings that were destroyed. So here more than 1,000 people lost their lives. So the people, they have to move to another region or another place. Also in Al-Atarib or in Harim in Northwest Syria. This has happened because they lost everything, and then they have to move to another places where they can get immediate support, etc. Because some regions are isolated nowadays, so no water trucks, for example, reach some places during the damage in the roads, or the local NGOs were not able to reach them, and then they have to move. I hope I get the question and I answered them.
Thank you.
Just grab the next one. Does anybody have any other critics? Do you jump in one? Yeah, perfect.
I'm from Lighting. Thank you very much. We're all with you. I mean, you've already mentioned some of it, but could you maybe speak a bit to the sort of medium and long-term challenges? I mean, I fully understand, fully appreciate this is a lot of burning, immediate, urgent issues, but I also sadly expect some of the issues to be in the medium and longer run. Some of the infrastructure being destroyed. Could you maybe speak a bit to that in terms of what it does to food security, what it does to a lot of very basic components of livelihoods?
Lisa, I think we are struggling to hear the clear voice. If you can talk from the laptop, I'm not sure if Mohammed faced the same issue.
Yeah, I think it's because of where the microphone and the connection to the speaker. So can you hear me okay now? Is that better? So yes. Jean-Benoit's question was, obviously cognizant that right now we're in operational post disaster mode, but at some point, some thinking about the transition into longer term issues around, for example, food security and the damage that to the indirect consequences of this. And we had a conversation about that you might want to comment on, for example, on the disruption to food supply chains and livestock value chains. And gave a great example about the flooding, which I think is not, by the way, in the UK, there's been no media coverage of that flooding. And I think it might be very helpful for the audience to hear a little bit about that, perhaps.
Yeah, thank you. Very important question, actually. Just nowadays, we are all running and try to support the people with urgent need just to survive, as I think, but also as academics and researchers, we should think about the long term and after the earthquake, actually. There is no answer what is the damage of the earthquake on the food security and on the market supply chain, etc. There are reporting about that the food still be accessed until now in the market, but with increased prices, food prices, it's a global issue. And there are some, we recorded some damage for the fields in some regions. And also it was flows from Orontes River. This is the main river in this area, which the edge of in one location was damaged, or and then flows of the water come and covered 5 villages. Just today I heard news about that there are a lot of cracks in the fields also, and we should assess this. In another way, when we are talking about more than 5,000 deaths in this region, so I can imagine, so most of them are either farmers or they were agricultural farmer workers, etc. So that means the food production could be strongly affected by the earthquake. Another things that well, it wasn't a lot of infrastructure for the food production, for example, or processing, but it was we called them small or local workshops or manufacturers, so even family level, and these are also damaged during this disaster. So anyway, yes, we need support in this case to evaluate the impact of the earthquake, this disaster, on different sectors. So including, as I mentioned, food security, education, and infrastructure, etc. Maybe to say here that from the ongoing conflict, the people inside Syria and our colleagues and the NGOs, they have a kind of knowledge how to deal with the crisis, but still the earthquake is something new, and maybe here we need support from other colleagues or experts from other countries to exchange such learned lessons, etc. The resources is very low, is very limited for us until now, and also this is a big question and make us put a list of priorities where we should respond first, and put a kind of strategic plan for the transition from immediate or from emergency, and then after earthquake for mid-term, just to enable the people, the still working, etc., and then maybe after 3 months the resilience from this disaster. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Shahir. I think sort of the key messages that I suppose coming out of that are locally led questions, locally led solutions, and that as an international academic community being able to try to help, I guess, support as you're sort of moving into a mode to try and address those things. And one of the things that we chatted about when the time is right is as a team how we can enable a conversation about how to pivot into starting to think about those longer term issues in the same way that we did when COVID happened. So this network started actually just before COVID, and well, as I said, in 2019. And so we've had to be agile and flexible enough to respond to these things that have really exacerbated what is a long-standing crisis. One of the things, I think what I'm going to do now, just from the interest of time, is I'm going to, if this is okay with you, Mohammed, we'll showcase the film, and then we'll create a bit of space afterwards to have some conversation around that. What I should have said at the beginning was on that picture of the people, we have a team who are, some of us are in the room here, but we were planning to travel to Gaziantep and to the region next week, had the earthquake not happened. We were in the process of planning a project that was really an extension of the work that I'm going to showcase to you in the Field Songs documentary. And it was really a question around issues around intangible cultural heritage, and in particular the role of artistic practice in the expression of what is visible and invisible, in terms of the way that people's voices are heard and connected into decision-making pathways. So what I just might say, I just want to highlight that Anne Zins here was the architect really of the Field Songs project with Duzan and with SAE, and our team was there to support it. I'm going to give a bit of introduction. I'm going to give space to you, Anne, at the end to say some words about the project. But The project was multidisciplinary collaboration. There were, well, myself, I'm a veterinary public health specialist. There were one health specialist and an anthropologist. And of course, we have arts and culture and people with technical food security specialization involved in that. And it was funded by the AHRC. And it really started with the question around unwritten cultural practices and oral community-based intergenerational knowledge transmission and questioning how that can be disrupted by protracted conflict or other global shocks, of course, like COVID, climate change were the ones on our minds at the time, but now, of course, the earthquake. And that in combination with fragmentation of these communities increases the risk that expert knowledge might be lost. So really the starting point for this film is really understanding that knowledge comes in many forms, that sometimes we privilege certain types of knowledge. Sometimes we privilege academic knowledge, STEM, scientific knowledge, when actually we need to be privileging local knowledge and local experiences, and think about how that can be used to inform the process. So the film that we're about to show you, we're very proud of this film. The people on screen and the people in the room and our other collaborators work very hard to make this happen. We were in Gaziantep last year in the summertime and had the opportunity to travel. And the reason we're showing it to you is, of course, part of this is a fundraising campaign, but what we wanted to show you was what this environment looked like, prior to the earthquake. It started, I think, the goal of the project primarily was really to bring together participants who were agricultural workers and people living in rural areas to perform and record harvesting songs, which capture knowledge about traditional forms of food production, manufacturing, and consumption. And the recordings, Dizan, were important here because they were creating a digital archive, which was being hosted on Dizan's website. And that digital archive is really critical for safeguarding refugee and tangible cultural heritage and making it available to communities who are Syrian communities in particular around the world. But I just wanted to point out that the secondary aspects of this film and about this project were really as important. So the songs were an entry point. Bringing people together in that environment and singing songs allowed for wider discussions around collective memory, around shared experiences, about what it means to be Syrian women in this context, about what it means to do work, about what it means to have children who might need to, well, we talked about lots of stuff in terms of early marriage and in terms of different kind of working conditions in different situations. This is a film that at the time that we made it was about hope and looking from the past into the present and into the future. It's still a film, I think, about hope, but it's worthwhile remembering that that I think now we are also perhaps looking a little bit at the past. So with that, I'm gonna put the film on now, and I'm happy with that. And then I'm just gonna try to make it happen, or Anna's gonna try to make it happen. You can share here, but Anna's giving me the help here. It'll be just be escape here, and maybe into the next. There and then into here, and then, yeah, there. Yeah. Okay. And then this is the. Yeah. Okay. I think that's it.
الزراعة بالنسبة للسوريين هي أكثر من مجرد وظيفة. إنها مجموعة من التقاليد التي تعكس التاريخ والثقافة الغنية للأشخاص الذين انتقلت خبراتهم المتراكمة من جيل إلى جيل. انتقلت المعرفة الزراعية عند السوريين من خلال الممارسات والأغاني والقصص، مما يجعلها مثالاً هاماً على التراث الثقافي غير المادي. تشكل الزراعة وإنتاج الغذاء والاستهلاك جزءاً كبيراً من الهوية السورية التي تربط الناس بعضهم ببعض من المناطق والديانات والأعراق المتنوعة.
يعني جمعة الأقارب والأصدقاء والأولاد، أولاد الأخ، أولاد الأخوة، أولاد العم، لما نطلع على الحصاد يعني مشان نحصد، هي إلها أيام وإلها نكهة يعني خاصة ما تنتسى يعني بصراحة. العمل كان صعب بس المتعة كانت يعني تشيل هم التعب والصعوبة اللي كنا نواجهها بالعمل.
ويا مغمار شمال شمال ونوخ بعير الجمال، يا مغمارها ولم شمالك قبل الشوب مشكل ومدرع بالثوب، ولم شمالك قبل الشوب مشكل ومدرع بالثوب، يا مغمارها.
كان معظم سكان الريف يعتمدون على الزراعة إما تجارياً كمصدر للدخل أو لإنتاج طعامهم الخاص قبل النزاع في سوريا. شاركهم تراثهم أهل المدن الذين ترتبط حياتهم بالزراعة من خلال حب النباتات والحدائق المنزلية، حيث اعتادت العديد من العائلات الحضرية على تزيين منازلهم بنباتات الزينة مثل الياسمين والبرتقال والورود. وحمل العديد من السوريين بذور النباتات المفضلة لديهم ومعرفتهم الزراعية معهم عندما اضطروا إلى مغادرة وطنهم بعد عام 2011. ولا يزال التراث الزراعي غير المادي للسوريين واضحاً لليوم في عادات اللاجئين حول الطهي والأكل والأزياء والقصص والأغاني.
وتلقط بحي انطتنا وتلقط بحي انطتنا وغير الضحك واللي عيد يا زين مع طوتنا، ولما نخلص الحصاد راحت وخلتنا والود والضحك ولي عيد خسكار برية.
يوم كنت اطلع على النخل احيانا كنا نستعين مثل هيك حبل نصله بتلفها دائما ضمن النخل، ويعني مع انك نيها كنا نتشل بها واطلع.
تطلعيها شوي شوي.
ايوه انها تغنيف يعني هلا انت بتميز هي الرفه يعني رخوه بدها توقعك ولا لا؟ بتعرف انت وين ثبت رجلك. كنا نطلع على الكرانيف نسجل والنخله كانت لسه اعلى لسه كمان يعني بعدها وقت هيك هالعريشه هيك نطلع لها لفوق، كنا نشيل القاع تبع الذكر نمسكه نطلع بيه لفوق بس بالعصا بعمل فيه هيك حتى ينزل طبعا ينزل على طول اذا ما لك التمر لا بيحمل بس بتطلع خايسه يعني ما بطلع فيها عجبه يعني اذا بتمطر عليها الدنيا بتعفن ما بتطلع لهيك جبالنا نلقح
جمع مشروع أغاني الحقول في عام 2022 أكاديميين في علم الاجتماع والزراعة وموسيقيين من جامعة إدنبرا، منظمتين يقودهما سوريين في تركيا، الخبرات الأكاديمية السورية ودوزان ثقافة وفن. فقد هدد النزاع والنزوح منذ عام 2011 التراث الزراعي السوري غير المادي. إن تشتت المجتمعات الريفية وما يترتب عليه من انقطاع التواصل الثقافي بين الأجيال المعمرة والشبابية السورية يعني أن أشكالاً محددة من هذه المعرفة الزراعية غير المكتوبة والمتراكمة عبر الأجيال قد تتعرض للضياع. إن الفكرة التي يرمي إليها مشروع أغاني الحقول هي استكشاف الروابط بين الماضي والحاضر والمستقبل للتراث الزراعي السوري. فقد كانت المعرفة لدى المزارعين والموسيقيين السوريين في صميم مشروعنا. عقدنا ورشتي عمل في مدينة غازي عنتاب بتركيا، سعينا خلالها إلى توثيق قصص المزارعين وذكرياتهم عن الممارسات الزراعية وخبرات العمل والأغاني. بالنسبة للعديد من المشاركين كانت هذه هي المرة الأولى التي تمكنوا فيها من مقارنة تجاربهم مع مزارعين آخرين من مناطق سورية أخرى والتعرف على تقاليد متنوعة. ومن أجل فهم تأثير التراث الزراعي بشكل أفضل على عمل السوريين الحالي كلاجئين، أجرينا أيضا زيارات حقلية ومقابلات لمدة شهر في مناطق زراعية مختلفة في تركيا. أحد هؤلاء المزارعين هو أبو فيصل من دير الزور.
نحن أول ما جينا على تركيا أول شهر تقريبا لبين ما استقرينا، تعرفي يعني صعوبة إنك تحصل بيت وتستقر وتبدأ عاد تبحث عن عمل. العمل الأول شفت الوضع السوريين، يعني كان دخولنا بداية الموسم الصيفي، يعني كان بالشهر الثالث تقريبا فتنا على تركيا، فشفت في طلب على الزراعة على الخضار السورية. الخضار السورية هاي متميزين بها السوريين، وين ما راحوا يعني ياخذوها معهم يزرعوها بالأماكن اللي يرحلوا عليها، اللي هي بامية وباذنجان وملوخية. هاي تعتبر أساسيات، تعتبر من تراث أهل الدير، من تراث المنطقة، يعني يعتبرونها ما يتخلون عن هاي الأصناف. فاشتغلنا بها بالبداية كبيع وشراء. بعد فترة اتجهت على موضوع الزراعة، فاضطرينا ناخذ أي أرض يعني حصلناها أخذناها، بدأنا فيها. تعذبت شوي أول سنة، يعني كان يعني تقريبا ما نعتبر خسارة، يعني خسارة تعب. بدأت بالبداية تقريبا ب10 دونمات، جربت يعني الزراعة فيها لبين ما يعني صار عندي اسم بالسوق، لبين ما تعلمت الناس المعارف الأصدقاء، شفت وضع السوق، صار عندي زبائن. يعني اضطريت أخذ أرض أكبر، أخذت أرض أكبر بمنطقة ثانية. بلشت أتوسع، زرعت صنف، يعني مرة زرعت موسم، مرة يعني مساحة كبيرة شيء تقريبا 22 دونم زرعتها صنف واحد اللي هي الملوخية. نسبة الإقبال عليها يعني جدا كبير. المنطقة الشرقية ما يعني سكان المنطقة الشرقية ومنطقتنا ما يتخلوا عن الملوخية وعن البامية الزورية وعن الباذنجان.
وخلال ورشات العمل سمعنا الأغاني التي تعلمها المزارعون السوريون في الحقول من آبائهم وأجدادهم، والتي لم يغنوها لسنوات عديدة.
وهالقاعدة عالطيبة واكتب في الشعرية
كانت ورشات العمل أيضا فرصة للمشاركين لسماع وغناء بعض هذه الأغاني، والتي في كثير من الأحيان عانوا من أجل تذكرها. فقد كانت ورشات العمل أكثر من مجرد وسيلة لجمع الأغاني، كانت الموسيقى مدخلا لمزيد من التفكير المؤثر حول معنى أن تكون لاجئا وتعمل في الزراعة في تركيا اليوم، الأدوار الجديدة للرجال والنساء وتربية الأطفال والآمال والأحلام للمستقبل، مما جعل بعض المشاركين يواصلون الحديث حول هذا الموضوع في المنزل مع أطفالهم.
ممكن نزرع بأولادنا التراث بهيك فترة هاي نزرعوا أبنائنا بحيث إنه قد يعني الآن ما في 100 يوم
اعتادت النساء السوريات على لعب دور رئيسي في الزراعة، فقد حافظن على إحساس مجتمعاتهن بالهوية، يساهمن في دخل أسرهن من خلال عملهن اليومي داخل المنزل وخارجه. فقد ساهمت العديد من اللاجئات في تركيا في الحفاظ على التراث الزراعي. إحدى هؤلاء النساء هي أم عامر، التي أجبرت على مغادرة مسقط رأسها في تدمر.
كانت شغلتنا هي بالبلد هاي، أنا تورثته أبا عن جد، لأن الصنعة هاي شغلة أهلي. كان عندهم محلات ويجيبوا من البرية، يطلعوا على البادية ويجيبوا الحليب ويساووه بالبلد. بالبداية أنا ما اشتغلت بشغلتي، اشتغلنا عند واحد بس بالبيت شغلنا نشتغل أنا والأولاد وجوزي وكنتي. وبعدين معه تطورت الأحوال، ومع فتحة الأولاد للمحل حبيت أساعدهم، والحمد لله رب العالمين ساعدتهم ولهلا عم بساعدهم. أي شغلة بتكون معتادينها بساوي له إياها. مثلا الحصرم بساوي حلو ومالح، بساوي كمان دبس البندورة، دبس الفليفلة، حدا بده مكدوس، مربيات، كله الحمد لله بعمله.
قمنا بجمع 25 أغنية تقليدية عن الحصاد من خلال ورشات العمل في تركيا، وإجراء مزيد من البحث عن بعد مع المزارعين داخل سوريا. تعكس هذه الأغاني أوجه الشبه والاختلاف بين معظم مناطق سوريا والأشكال المتنوعة من التقاليد الزراعية. توثق منصة نوت الرقمية التراث الموسيقي السوري من خلال جمع الموسيقى وأرشفتها وصياغتها على شكل نوتات موسيقية. من خلال هذه المنصة سننشر 10 مقطوعات موسيقية تمت صياغتها من أغاني الحصاد التي جمعناها مع المزارعين السوريين. يعد التراث الزراعي للسوريين عنصراً مهماً في هوية العديد من اللاجئين، ولكن له أيضاً تأثير إيجابي على الاقتصاد التركي. يكدح بعض اللاجئين السوريين كعمال باليومية، ويعملون ويعيشون في ظروف غير مستقرة. يزرع البعض بطريقة تقليدية باستخدام خبراتهم الزراعية الماضية في سوريا. بالإضافة لذلك، بدأ آخرون أعمالهم التجارية الخاصة من خلال الربط بين المعرفة المشتركة والخبرة العلمية المتطورة وأشكال التمويل المبتكرة. أدخل المزارعون السوريون المنتجات السورية إلى الأسواق التركية، وأقاموا سلاسل توريد جديدة، وخلقوا فرص عمل للاجئين السوريين والمواطنين الأتراك. فعلى سبيل المثال، وفي شانليورفا بالقرب من الحدود السورية التركية، أنشأ المهندسون السوريون مختبراً للزراعة المائية عالي التقنية للبحث في طرق إنتاج الغذاء المقاوم للتغيرات المناخية وتعزيز الأمن الغذائي في المنطقة. أحد رواد الأعمال هو أبو نبيل، وهو مربي نحل من اللاذقية.
بعمل هيك خلص لوحدي. ام نبيل هسه ما متذكر كان اذا عندنا اولاد ما عندنا اولاد، لك تشلح غطي بزيتونيه. جبنا على البيت مصر، وقت المصر حبينا هالمهنه اشتريت، وكنت شيل يعني من طن لطن ونص بالسنه بسوريا عسل. كنت اروح فيها لتل ابيض، على حمص، على حلب، على الجيجان. بهالاحداث جينا لهون يعني، هون معيشة صعبة، يعني يوم ما بتشتغل ما بتاكل. والله يسر علينا، تعبنا يعني اشتغلنا. ممكن نشوف الأمية هون لأنه قليل جيش.
بعد صغيرة.
ايه ليك كنت زارع بستان خيار بيجي دنم. اتصل معي واحد سوري قال لي تعال في شلح قدام بيتي على الشجرة. سبحان الله. جيت بدي اخذه حط تركي ايده عليه، قال لي هذا إلي ما بعطيك اياه. اشتريته منه ب 100 ليرة. وقت اشتريته منه ب 100 ليرة رحت حطيته بمنطقة باسكندرو مشان دفع. المهم ما بدنا نحكي هناك، بدل يتحسن النحلي ضعف. جبت له الخلية هون خلال شهر صار وفرخ 4. أنا رحت شفت نحال حاطط بيجي عنده 300 خلية. قلت له أنا قصتي هيك بتبيعني؟ قال لي بدي أعطيك 2 بسعر واحد. رديت بهالعمل وقت صار إني فيها مصاري، اشتريت فردر ب20 واحد. رحت حطيتهم بالحمضيات باسكندرون. الحمد لله أول ما أخذت منه 200 كيلو حمضيات طلع النحل ببلاش لإلي. ومشيت هذا الأمور من 2017 دوامة نظام يعني بالنحل.
من خلال الجمع بين المعرفة الغنية للنساء السوريات في الريحانية في جنوب تركيا، وفرت جمعية بيت المونة المنزلية وظائف للاجئات اللواتي ينتجن ويبيعن المأكولات السورية التقليدية والمشغولات اليدوية في منازلهن.
الفكرة حقيقة اجت من خلال الحاجة، يعني نحن لما جينا لاجئين كنا مثل الضايعين، كل شيء جديد علينا، كل شيء غريب، فكنا مجموعة من الصبايا السوريات جمعنا بعض بزيارات عائلية بلقاءات علمية، انه خلينا نعمل شيء يوصل صوت المرأة باحتياجاتها بهمومها بآمالها وآلامها. فطلعت هاي الفكرة. أنشأنا مشروع منك وإليك، من السيدة وإلى السيدات الأخرى. يعني السيدة القادرة أنها تعمل ممكن تشتغل بالبيت وتقدم للسيدة الموظفة، للسيدة اللي ما عندها وقت تعمل مونة منزلية، وللسيدة اللي مريضة مثلا، للسيدة الكبيرة في السن. فكان نحن هذا مشروعنا. بدأنا ب10 سيدات يشتغلوا بموضوع المونة، بعدين اتطورت أكثر. هلا حاليا مثل ما شرحت لك مديرة مشروع المونة إنه تقريبا وصلنا ل70 سيدة عم يشتغلوا معنا بمشروع المونة، والعدد قابل للزيادة في حال اجت السيولة والدعم وزادت رأس مال. هلا قضية دمج التراث بمشروعنا نحن منك وإليك صارت هيك، يعني سبحان الله هي متداخلة ببعضها. يعني لما نحن بدأنا بشغل مادة القش أو الرتان، هي من القديم كانت جداتنا يشتغلوا هذا الشغل وكانوا يحفظوا فيه المواد المونة، مثلا هاي كانوا يحطوا فيها المواد اليابسة أو يحطوا فيها مواد الخبز أو الطحين اللي قابل إنه دائما يتعرض للهواء. فنحن من مبدأ إنه تجميلي وإفادة حاولنا نحن نطور هاي الصناعة، صناعة الرتان.
التراث الزراعي للاجئين السوريين ما زال مهما. يمكن لصناع القرار في تركيا وخارجها استخدام هذا النوع من المعرفة للتعاون مع السوريين وتطوير طرق جديدة للزراعة. اللاجئون ليسوا ضحايا الصراع فقط، بل هم أيضا خبراء في تدبير سبل عيشهم، وينبغي لمعرفتهم وممارساتهم أن توجه سياسات التنمية والبرامج الإنسانية. إن منح اللاجئين مقعدا على الطاولة هو السبيل الوحيد نحو تحقيق التنمية المستدامة في الشرق الأوسط.
سألتيني سؤال مفصل كتير، إنه يا ترى هالمشروع ممكن ننفذه بسوريا؟ نحن لهلا بنحلم إنه نرجع لسوريا، وأي مشكلة بتتعرضنا سواء من الأخوة الأتراك أو من حدا بيقولوا لنا رجعوا بلدكم، نحن أكيد رح نرجع، وأكيد نحن رح نبني هالوطن. المكان نحن أكيد أولادنا هن رح يبنوا الوطن.
أنا ما حكيت.
رح نرجع إن شاء الله.
Okay, so thanks for just moving the camera around. So with that, we're close to the end of the program here, and we just wanted to give, I want to of course end with some opportunities for Mohammed and Shahar, but there's also an opportunity here for Anne, if you want to say anything, or for people to ask questions around the film, around the work that we're doing, and you can put them together. And did you want to say anything, Tom?
Yeah, so what you, as Lisa said, this film was shot last summer in Gaziantep and around in the Hatay region, which are the regions most badly affected by the earthquake. And at the time, we were thinking about this in terms of the future and in terms of what this kind of heritage may mean for sustainable development. And now, obviously, the earthquake has been a game changer. And in many ways, Syrians have been thrown back 10 years in time, back to like starting from zero again. But I think we just wanted to highlight again how this is, this kind of heritage is not just a nice cultural add-on to have. That's actually vital to how these farming communities survive and how they rebuild livelihoods. And in a way, documenting this and keeping it alive is even more important now than it was before the earthquake. So this is not just memories for the past. This is also about how people envision the future. And the future they might rebuild now one more time, either in Turkey or in Syria.
Thanks. And any questions or comments or reflections from the audience that you want to share? Maybe just shout it out and I can relate that to Mohammed and Shahar so they can hear. Please.
I was wondering, so a lot of that was about intergenerational transmission of knowledge. I was wondering whether there was much in terms of recollections of sort of big events like earthquakes or climate change recalled within those memories that have been passed on between generations.
So the question was just around the long-term memory, like the deep history, and whether or not in the recollection through those field songs, whether any of that came out in terms of kind of what that long-term history looked like and the response and recovery to it. Before I pass on to Shahar and Mohammed, I just want to say that one of the projects that we did prior to the Field Songs project was a project around Syrian food security, and as part of that we did look back at a long history in order to be able to do foresighting into sort of, well, in it's another story for another time, but we were looking at sort of 10, 15, 20 years down the future and understanding that long and deep past and the responses to those types of global shocks is quite critical in order to build the scenarios in the future. So maybe I can, I'll go online first, Anne, and to Shahar and to Mohammed, and then come back to you if you wanted to reflect on it. Do either of you have a comment to make about that, the deep time or long history?
If may I, can you repeat the question? Because it was hard for me to hear it.
Yeah, so the question was, in short, did in the Field Songs project, or more generally in the work we're doing, have when we're talking about collective memory, does any of that come through in terms of a history, a long history of, for example, other global shocks, earthquakes, or other types of socio-political events, or other types of natural disaster, etc., and how did that play out in the work that we did, and how presumably how we conceive of going forward? I hope I paraphrase correctly. Does that make sense, Mohammed? Is that clear? Yeah. Who wants to come in on that?
We can have an example, it's not that long example from the earthquake. It's the 12 years of the conflict in Syria as a political issue, as a socio-political. This conflict has been ongoing for 12 years with people left the country and people are now displaced inside Syria, and people died all this 12 years. So this memory, collective memory, including the culture one, or the artistic, or the social, or the scientific. And when we talk about collective memory, it's like a really general word for like too many aspects of the collective memory. So yeah, Syria been through that. Not only those 12 years and before the 12 years, where there was like a lot of conflicts in Syria. And Syria is a really diverse country with ethnicities and religious and backgrounds. And those for like around 40 years, it's been abundant and there were like you can say that there was a systematic approach of not showing this to the whole world or even to the Syrian people. And through our work, through the Field Songs project, there's a lot of people start knowing other Syrian people from different cities that nobody knows cultural things about it, or like small details about it, or the way they were planting or harvesting. Is if we're gonna take the agriculture aspect, that it was the title of the version. And now through this workshop, through this project, and through the work that we are trying to do, all what we're trying to do is to raise the awareness about this diverse culture memory and collective memory. We're like taking in like we are in specific and specialized in the culture and artistic memory, which is a really important part of the national memory. I hope like I answered the question, and it was like it was a clear answer.
Yeah, Mohammed, thank you so much. I think that's really helpful answer. And I suppose one of the things that you were pointing out there, and perhaps Shahar might want to comment, was that an extension of the work that we had planned to do and that Shahar's team was about to do was to go deeper into some of the intergenerational history. Shahar, do you want to comment on that?
Yes, Lisa, exactly. This is what I want to highlight. Actually, the documentary itself is a memory now. It is a story by itself. After the earthquake is not as before. So when I saw the documentary now, I just remember myself when we were in these regions, which is destroyed totally. Maybe the buildings that we visited, the families that we visited in Antakya or Rihanli or in Shali, or they are destroyed now. So even for us, it is a memory now. And the other thing, we were very aware or serious to say, and keen to collect this memory and this culture from the old people. You know, Lisa, we were discussing that really we need to go to deeper and to visit the families in Northwest Syria, conduct field work there and collect these memories. We were afraid to lose the people, but we didn't expect it, that such a disaster will happen. And now the risk to lose these memories became bigger and bigger. You know, we plan to, and we start actually conducting some interviews with people to collect these memories. We conduct 2 interviews only 2 days before the earthquake. Now we don't know if really we can continue interview people and ask them about this. At the same time, they are suffering from other issues, etc. The trauma is so big for all of us. I think yes. So we need to continue. We need to collect these memories, but I think the conditions after the earthquake is not as the same before. Thank you.
Thanks, Shahar. And just for the room, I suppose it's unimaginable really to think about the sheer level of destruction of, as you said, some of those places that existed, 2 weeks ago and that now don't exist. I don't remember what the figure was. I think you told me, was it in Antakya, where less than 30% or 20% of the buildings are still standing. So sheer destruction on a scale that is unimaginable, really. And as you say, there's a lot of trauma, I think, in terms of trying to explore that right now, and probably trauma that will be there for a long time. Are there other reflections in the room that you want to share? Are there any sentiments you want to say?
I just wanted to say something, coming back to your question about how people have long dealt with systemic pressures. One thing that really came out of the workshops and the field work is that Syrian farmers have long been very good with dealing with pressure. So Syria is a famously water-scarce country, right? So, and these people, a lot of them were small-scale farmers before the war, so they were used to finding low-cost irrigation solutions. They were used to, for example, producing their own organic fertilizer, and some of this knowledge they have brought to Turkish agriculture, even though it's not always acknowledged. And that was one of the reasons why we were so interested in documenting this in the first place, because the people you saw in the workshops who are now middle-aged, these people are experts of their own livelihoods. They don't need agricultural trainings by international organizations because they've long been very good at finding solutions including to climate-proofing agriculture, right? And this kind of knowledge still exists and it's worth highlighting.
Thank you, Anne. We're at the time of close, and we recognize the contributions that you've made by being here in the audience. And in particular, I just want to recognize that Shahar and Mohammed have given up quite a large portion of their day today to be here when they are very busy, and they've been working really hard to support their own communities. And so I want to offer, if you like, the last word to both of you. And with our immense gratitude from this side that you would be willing to come and share and talk to us. So if I can start with you, Shahar, and then I'll come to you, Mohammed. Shahar?
Yes, thank you, Lisa, thank you, Anna and Martin and all the team. Thank you for all the participants. Really, this is a great thing to show the solidarity with the people in Turkey and in Syria, especially with our colleagues and for the students, for the academia also. This is a great thing. And even every support is very helpful now, even if small, but it will be considered as a big support for the people in the ground. I haven't a lot to say, but really the people need every support for now and for after. The need, as you know, before the earthquake is huge, as we talked, and now unfortunately make it more bigger and more complicated in the sense of destroyed infrastructure and a lot of buildings and lost a lot of people. I'm so proud that you for your support and really thank you for everything.
Thanks, Mohammed.
I just want to thank everyone who was part of this two events for today, and thank you for your support. What I can say, like, let's keep talking about it so we can find solutions together. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Anne. Thank you, Martine, for the technical support for this gathering to discuss more about what's going on.
Thanks, Mohammed. And I suppose I just want to end by saying that the place that we started the project, it's not really, this event wasn't about the project, it was really about our friends. And I think one of the things that I really enjoy about working together with Shahar, with Mohammed, with other members of our team is that that we are friends and we put that first, and that comes before everything else. And so where we were with you before, we're with you now, and we're going to continue to be with you. And I know that everybody in the room, I think I speak for everybody in the room when I think that we feel the same way. And I think I represent the community here at the Global Academy at the University of Edinburgh. You're our colleagues, our friends, our family, and we will continue to have conversations here about how we can best reflect and support you in ways that make your voices heard and what your needs are spoken. So we'll do our best over here, and we will stay in touch with thanks from all of us here. Okay, thank you. Good.